I am here representing Four Corners Gallery. I am the digital archivist and curator there. The Bengali Photo Archive, which is what I'm talking about today, is a project we started 18 months ago, and it was a participatory archiving project to celebrate the Bengali community of Tower Hamlets. So this community has a very long and rich history in the area, spanning over a century, starting from the 1920s Lascars to the 1970s immigration wave. There were a lot of people that worked in the textile industries and enhanced that industry, the restaurant business. There's a lot of youth group connections and activism that came out of that. Music, including the Asian underground, came out in the early notice. So it's a very, very rich history, but what we found and what we were discussing with one of our partners on this, we partnered with Shabinada Trust, a Bengali heritage organization, Tower Hamlets. And what they pinpointed was that what you hear mostly about this community, Tower Hamlets, is the the anti-racist struggles and the political movement, the activist movement, which is a very important history, but you don't hear about the breadth of that community. So we partnered with them to create this archive, trying to piece together that history. We then brought another key partner in this project, which was the Tower Hamlets Archives, that helped us come up with policies, digital archiving policies, consulted us throughout the way to create permissions, and they are the ones that are going to keep this collection in perpetuity, the digital collection. So this was a fairly long project, 18 months long. Within that time, we managed to collect about 4,600 images from individuals, artists, musicians, teachers, activists, politicians, families, everyday vernacular images, as well as a collection of photographers, about 12 of them, amateur and professionals, that have captured the community, the day-to-day life, street scenes, mainly documentary photography and photojournalism. Also capture a lot of the historical moments I mentioned earlier. So we also captured 21 histories to contextualize the images, created 10 videos with the help of our volunteers, using the art histories and the images. An online website where you can access, where you can see the whole collection of them, which was basically created to help us co-curate the exhibition. So we used our archive to work with participants to help us edit and select images for the exhibition. The exhibition was how the project ended for now. It was co-curated exhibition to reflect the participatory aspect of the feeling of the project. And finally, we had 25 volunteers that engaged with us throughout the whole, some of them stayed for 3 to 6 months, others engaged for the whole duration. One of them is here with me, hi Julian, who became the co-curator to the exhibition. We couldn't have done that without them, honestly. They were trained and helped us research, outreach, digitize, and conduct interviews, make the videos, co-curate, pretty much everything. But as mentioned before, what I'm focusing on today is collecting and selecting. So how did we manage to collect 4,600 images? We tried 3 different approaches. We've never done something like that before, so it was very helpful to have this amount of time and our partners to consult us along the way to try different approaches. First, we started with a digital approach, promoting digitally. We had set scanning days to keep a very set day that people could come and bring their photos to scan. We didn't want to keep any photos, we just wanted to digitize them. But we prefer digitizing them ourselves, just to keep within our policies. So this approach didn't work very well with this community. I should also say that at that point, we were very open to what we were collecting, and we were very open to what would come to us from the community. Even though we had an idea of areas of history that we wanted to capture, the only kind of limitation we put was the amount of photos people could bring. That was 25 photos. But we did encourage people to make their own selections and bring photos that were significant to them, whether that is because of what they represented or whether they were aesthetically pleasing. So from that, to do their own curation, basically. Our next approach, which helped a little bit more, was for us to go out in the community and do more of a person-to-person promotion to talk about this. This helped much more because we realized that we were asking a lot from people. We were asking to go and find their old photos wherever they were hiding in shoe boxes most often, and sit and select and think about what should be remaining in history, understand why this was important to be done, which in many cases you had to explain that, and in some cases to get permission from family members, and also trust us with their stories, their histories, their identities. So it was a lot. So it really helped having an in-person contact. We went to festivals, we went to community groups. This is the Mulberry School for Girls Parents community group, which I will talk about a little bit also later, and presenting it to policymakers and representatives of the community. So at that point, we started finding ambassadors that will help us have this sort of like world of math promotion. So that's when we started getting some submissions. But the third approach, which was the most successful in my view, was a targeted approach. And our volunteers really helped us for that. But here we had to be a little bit more directed with what we were looking for. We had a team of volunteers to direct. It had to have more structure. So we started breaking down the themes that we have found up until that point were important to cover. And encourage the volunteers to choose what they prefer, to start researching and finding contacts, making, sending emails, trying to get into communication with particular people in the community and invite submissions. So this was really what started bringing the most submissions, and that was already about 6 months in. That as soon as people started to find out about it, and emails were coming, and we were out in the community, it didn't take much for that world of mapping to happen. So that's when we started getting submissions, and that's when we started realizing that we have to maybe reject some photos and make some really hard decisions in terms of selection. So this is an example of some photos that we couldn't accept. People that left our hamlets and were not in London anymore would send us, and had the body from a friend, would send us email of a photo. So we made the hard decision to, stick to our policies and not accept these images, but we did try to come up with ways of maybe building the trust for them to post them to us or give them direction to digitize. So out of the 60 submissions, we rejected 4 in the end. 3 of them was that kind of type of submission, and the other one was one that I'd like to talk a little bit more because it was the biggest challenge project, a quite interesting conflict between archival policies and religious beliefs, which we didn't expect. So these photos were submitted to us by a woman from the group I mentioned earlier, the Melbourne School for Girls Parents group, who is a follower of a particular Islamic school of thought that forbids image making. But she did understand the point of archiving her family history, and she did really want to submit images. So she resorted to annotating the photos with a marker in her phone and erasing the faces and submitting that. So us using an agile methodology, I should also mention that with our partners. We always went back to our policies, discussing it, adjusting it, our permission documents. We had a long discussion about that, and it was decided that there is not enough information for this to be archival. But luckily we did manage to find a creative solution because we are an art gallery. With the opportunity, actually, the fact that the exhibition was collaborative gave us the opportunity to do participatory workshops and create new interpretations of the photos of the archive. So we grabbed that opportunity and went back to this women's group and called photographer Jenny Matthews, who works with embroidery and photography. And with these creative workshops where women could embroider and decorate photos. So they had the option to, instead of erasing for the faces, to add to it, and also add a little bit of their sensibility, a little bit of their identity to that. So this is how we managed to, first of all, exhibit these really wonderful artifacts, but also include these stories in our archive. This is an example of one of them in the exhibition. So we've just now concluded our project. We are in the process of sending to our Homeless Archive 4,600 images literally at a time. This is a big collection. But we're realizing that this project is just begun. Yes, the photos are going to be kept in our Homeless Archives and people can access them, but now we have a website that was created out of this collaborative need. So we're trying to find ways to how to continue this. What is the actual ownership of this archive? And find ways to get funding to consult the community to see how it should be continued and how it can be used for more creative projects, because it is a visual archive and it's incredibly rich. And you can access it and view all of the collections. Is semi-curated in bengaliphotoarchive.com. And thank you very much.